the ACEBA under the EU Switch Asia program. So I would like to formally welcome everyone to this afternoon's webinar. So this webinar is the second of ACEBA's series of Business for Circular Economy webinars, which aims to discuss how to best support the regional circular economy transition through ACEBA. And particularly for this seminar, how to align CE and the ESG initiatives of businesses. This webinar would like to also highlight examples of CE business practices from the business cases developed by ACEBA in partnership with the EU Switch Asia Policy Support Component and ARIBA. So this webinar, the sessions of this webinar will be reflecting on the evolving accountability norms and stakeholder expectations for businesses and their contributions to sustainable development, particularly through their ESG initiatives. We would also like to zoom in on the potential of achieving ESG impact through the adoption of CE practices, as well as highlighting emerging insights on business opportunities and rationale for circular economy for Southeast Asian businesses. And more importantly, we would also like to explore possible collective action towards CE and impactful ESG implementation. So just a couple of house rules for this webinar. So our webinar will last for about 1.5 hours. So our participants are required to mute their microphones to avoid audio interference as we go through our program. A recording of this webinar will be made available to the participants after the webinar. For questions during the sessions, you can type your questions in the chat box. And if time permits, after each session, we will be opening the floor. We will be selecting questions from the chat box from the participants' questions. Longer inquiries can be sent to us via email at the end of the webinar at info@aceba.co. So just a quick rundown of the program. So we will have a short opening remarks from the ASEAN Business Advisory Council. Then we will have two presentations, one from Mr. Thomas on the evolving landscape of ESG, and also one from Dr. Renee Van Berkel on circular economy being a practical tool towards ESG impact. Then we will have two panels, the first being the panel with our ASEAN businesses, selected ASEAN businesses sharing their experience on circular economy and ESG. And the second panel will be on how to enhance contributions of the circular economy towards ESG performance. We will be joined by a panel of experts for the second panel. And then to end the program, we'll have a vote of thanks from our team leader from EU Switch Asia PSC. So let's start the ball rolling. May we now call on the Executive Director of the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, Mr. Rifki Bueno, for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Mary Grace. Hope I'm audible. Yep, okay. Thank you, Mary Grace, again for the kind introductions. Thank you, Thomas and Renee, for inviting ASEAN back to be part of this event. This is a very crucial webinar, and I'm very delighted to see so many of you joining us today. I think I quickly glimpsed through the participants list, and I see a lot of a diverse audience of businesses, policymakers, and experts from across the region and beyond. We are here today because we recognize the urgent need to address the pressing environmental challenges facing our region. The ASEAN region, with its dynamic growth, also faces significant waste management challenges. As we all know, the ASEAN region generates millions of tons of packaging waste annually, with 6 ASEAN countries are unfortunately ranking among the world's top contributors to marine plastic pollution. Despite growing sustainability commitments, waste collection and recycling rates remain alarmingly low, with over half of ASEAN's waste uncollected and less than a quarter of collected waste recycled. From ASEAN back, a critical component of this is the implementation of effective extended producer responsibility frameworks in ASEAN. By making producers responsible for the end-of-life management of their products, we can drive investment in waste collection and recycling infrastructure. We also can incentivize sustainable product design and reduce environmental impact. We must ensure that EPR frameworks include measurable targets for waste collection and recycling, a transparent legislative frameworks with clearly defined objectives, industrial compliance models through producer responsibility organizations, and also incentives for upstream solutions like eco-design and recycled content. We recognize that ASEAN countries are at different stages of developing these regulations. Vietnam and the Philippines have implemented EPR laws, while Indonesia has a roadmap for waste reduction by manufacturers, but they don't have laws yet. Thailand and Malaysia are developing their own regulations. We in the ASEAN Bank is working very closely with the EU ASEAN Business Council to develop this circular economy report, and we will aim to launch it in May. And I will hope that the audience here today will also be able to attend the launching of the report next month. The report sees that the EPR landscape remains fragmented, and regarding policy designs, producer obligations, regulatory frameworks, and enforcement mechanism. Therefore, I think as a region, we must take proactive steps to align national and regional EPR policies with internationally recognized principles. This will ensure a predictable and scalable framework for businesses in the region. To truly make a difference, we need to move beyond individual efforts and embrace collective actions. I think the ACEBA has made a tremendous contributions that provides a platform for us to share knowledge, exchange best practices, and build partnerships. However, we should explore ways to merge existing platforms. We have seen a lot of platforms already in the region, and we want to have it merge into a bigger, a common platform to act as an effective channel to deliver business feedback on the AEC ASEAN Economic Community Framework for Circular Economy. I think by embedding key EPR design principles into ASEAN's policy frameworks and fostering collaboration between governments, EPR can become a driver of investment, innovation, and sustainability. Therefore, I think we should think of how do we make these platforms move beyond exchanging best practices, but also a platform whereby we can effectively collect businesses' feedbacks and also towards the government when they implement the AAC framework for circular economy. Therefore, I encourage you all to actively participate in discussions, share your insights, and contribute to the development of actionable solutions. I think together we can drive transition into a circular economy in Southeast Asia and create a more sustainable future for our region. This webinar series is a very, very good first steps, but we need to move beyond this exchange of best practices and be more concrete in terms of giving policy recommendations to the ASEAN Economic Community. They have different working groups already there, so we need to institutionalize these ACEBA into a platform whereby this ACEBA is recognized as a platform for businesses to provide feedback to the working committee on circular economy in ASEAN. Thank you once again for joining us, and hope to hear a lot more important feedbacks from the businesses today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rifki. So next we move on to the first presentation. We move on to the meat of the webinar. So our first presentation is on the evolving landscape of environment, social, and governance expectations and requirements in ASEAN. This presentation will be made by Mr. Thomas Thomas, co-convener of ACEBA, chairman of ARIBA SDN-BHT, and senior expert of EU Switch Asia PSC. Thomas?
Thank you, everybody. And let me first start off by welcoming you all to this today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because I know people from different time zones are here. Welcome to all of you and thanks. I would just be giving an overall view on the ESG landscape and with some reference to ASEAN as a whole. But I'll start with the big picture and narrow down. Before that, next slide, please. I'll just give you a little introduction to to our roots. Now I represent the ARIBA Sindikat Berhad, which is a company registered in Malaysia, which is purpose-driven, not-for-profit, working to advance responsible, inclusive business in Southeast Asia. It took over the job of, it's a successor to the ASEAN CSR network. And this was established, ARIBA was registered last year. And we continue to be the responsible and inclusive business champion with the ASEAN Business Advisory Council. Click, please. Next. Okay, I also want to introduce you that ARIBA acts as the regional hub for the ASEAN Circular Economy Business Alliance, which is ASEAN-centric, business-led, intended to foster business leadership. And it is developed with ARIBA and together with Switch Asia, launched last year in July with support from the ASEAN Secretariat when review was still moved on, the ASEAN Advisory Council and the EU delegation to ASEAN. More of ARIBA and the circular economy you will hear from Rainy after me. Next slide, please. I also want to say that part of this ARIBA actually is ASEAN Responsible Inclusive Business Alliance. It's based on a code which ASEAN CSR Network and ASEAN Business Advisory Council agreed on it in 2019. It consists of 7 principles, the principles of accountability, transparency, ethical behavior, respect for stakeholder interests, respect for the rule of law, respect for international norms, and to treat people with respect, dignity, and fairness. This is an overarching understanding on what values and principles should go into this code. And the next slide, please. The code also covers 7 subject areas. We talked about governance, environment, labor, anti-corruption, human rights, consumer protection, and community involvement. Our code takes into account the international standards that has been around, particularly the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, the ILO conventions, and the OECD guidelines, etc. So all this is intended, next please, is to meet 3 things. One is to contribute to sustainable development goals, the goals for climate change, environment, the decent work agenda, partnerships, and even sustainable consumption and production. It also is to meet regulatory and market requirements. The market today expects more from businesses, not just to remain profitable, but also things. And they address the stakeholder expectations. The next slide, please. I also want to say that this word ESG is quite similar to many other terminologies. It's what we call same, but different. There is slight differences, but there are common. You can call it CSR, corporate sustainability, corporate responsibility, and a lot of organizations interchange with it. But let me just spend a bit of time to give an overall idea of what, when we talk about ESG, what do we really mean in addition to these terms. The next slide, please. Next as well. If you look at the whole of the ESG landscape, it sounds very complex. There's a lot of standards, disclosures, rating agencies, sectorial standards, and it can be confusing. So it's a whole lot of things, but it's all these are some way or other related, connected, and a whole lot of things. So the next slide, please. So I just generally is all these initiatives, frameworks are fairly related to one another. But let me just go and talk about the latest standards that attempt to it. Next slide, please. If I take next, please. Okay, if I take the ISO has just came out with this International Framework Agreement 48 last year. Also to keep you updated, is one of the best frameworks or understanding of ESG is to get a copy of the ISO 26000 to do it. It has just been confirmed for another 5 years without amendments. So it's without revision. So it's confirmed. So ESG, look at it, is strategic, operational. I think the key underlying word is to achieve sustainable development, social justice, and good governance. So it's talk about impact on environment, society, including the contribution towards sustainable development. So I think that's key. And the next slide, please. The agreement also just mentions that while it propels sustainability, it's also good for the organization. There's value for the organization. And here you list a few things like raising capital. You have got regulatory relationship, customers, shareholders, personnel, even mitigation adaptations. So there's a whole lot of benefits from this. And next slide, please. And if you look at the ESG, it also talks about the underlying values of these elements that is also included in it. I am not going through all those things, but I want to just say that these are things that you can look. And for your information, the International Workshop Agreement 48 is free for download. It's one of those standards that anybody can download from the ISO website free of charge. So unlike the other standards, you don't have to pay for it. But I want to come to, for the next slide, is one very important principle of ESG comparatively. Okay, next slide, please. I think this is one of the key parts that they talk about materiality. Materiality is this. So in normal terms, there's financial, some of the standards of the IFRS and the integrated reporting talks more about the impact on the financial materiality to the businesses. But in the social responsibility is that you also talk about the impact on society. What is the values of society? So in ESG, you not just look at what is the impact on your business, because every business must remain profitable. If the business is not profitable, they cannot exist. But it must also be profitable and also good for society. So there are standards that talks about international frameworks. I give you the whole of putting some sense into this complicated diagram that I showed earlier. The next slide, please. One of the best definitions of ESG and social responsibility is from the ISO 26000, that it is the responsibility of an organization for its impact of its decisions and activities, which include products, services, processes on society and the environment, through transparent and ethical behavior that contributes to sustainable development, health, and welfare of society, or takes into account the expectations of stakeholders, is in compliance with applicable rules, law, consistent with international norms of behavior, and integrated throughout the organization. Next, there's this diagram, next please, this, which is taken from the ISO 26000, which shows every organization live in an environment where you have a society and stakeholders. The society has expectations of every businesses. Stakeholders has interests in the things. And whatever the business does has an impact on both the stakeholders. Give you an example. If the company operates badly and it pollutes the environment, the society, there will be sick people. So their expectation is that you operate in which you are a good neighbor, you don't cause problems, you solve problems. Similarly, if you're an employee, your interest would be that you are you're given fair, equitable treatment, paid wages, which is decent, so you can have a decent life. So how the company pays also has an impact on it. So it's very interconnected. And businesses, the idea is to be responsible, to contribute to both. The next slide, please. So what are some of the things that in ASEAN drive some of the things? I think the first things is I made a list of non-exhaustive list of some regional initiatives which has got an impact. The taxonomy on sustainable finance, green bonds, circular economy framework. There is a responsible code. There's also the ASEAN's guidelines on labor, CSR on labor, and there's many of those things. And there are also country-specific rules. For example, the stock exchanges. I list 3, but the stock exchanges are already coming with regulations that expects companies to report not just on the financial performance, but also on their ESG disclosure and ESG performance. The next slide, please. In addition to this, I also want to say that it's the investors and consumers also expect. Investors know that just by reporting financial performance, past financial performance is no indication of future performance, but taking into account stakeholders and writing of the whole lot gives a fairer balance. And there's also the expectation is not just you make money, how did you make that money is also quite important. Similarly, stakeholders has got, the employees, communities has got expectation that businesses react to global problems, regional problems, and that people are a good neighbor, the company is a good neighbor and responsible. And all this also adds up that governments and societies, they are make commitments for the Paris Agreement on climate, zero net targets. All the ASEAN countries have net zero targets. But you can't achieve it unless businesses transit to renewable energy and circular economies. The next slide, please. So if it's, okay. I think these are just some of the listing of things on what is ESG, where you talk about climate disclosures, biodiversities, the circular economy things, and social is about labor rights, supply chain, the ASEAN guidelines of labor, CSR and labor, and then migrant workers issues is very important in ASEAN, and also on implementing the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. In governance, we talk basically about good corporate governance. And governance is key to all the other elements. Without good governance, you can't operate, you can't be trusted. So you need to make sure your governance is good. And also, we talk more and more about having anti-corruption practices, policies in place to make sure that your business operates cleanly and have clean outcomes. So the next slide, please. I want to just talk about the challenges for ESG. One of the biggest challenges is that the fragmentation regulatory framework within ASEAN and around the world. Different countries have different rules. The countries can have different priorities because in ASEAN, all the countries are not the same. We are at different levels of development. We are in different geographies, different social and economic issues. And the next one is also about data collection and complexities. It's whether you're using imperial measurements or metrics or some system. And also the big challenge is balancing profitability with sustainability. See, companies has to be profitable, but they must also be sustainable. So I think this is some of the challenges, but this will change very much to make sure that companies are profitable by being sustainable. It's just like in the past, many years when I start working, safety was and profitability. People will say safety, you take the risk. But today in most enterprises, nobody takes risk on safety. If it is not safe, there is no product operations. It's either safe operation or no operation. You stop until you make it safe. So I think that's going to be the challenge. So the opportunities for this is the green finance, money. I talk about the competitive advantage, that because you look at stakeholders' interests, you come up, and you also, in order to address, you have brought up a lot of innovations. And I mentioned circular economy and also advancing the business and human rights agenda. which is helpful for everybody. So the next slide, please. And I think the ASEAN outlook is that there is going to be greater alignment with international standards, not just for EPR, but circular economy, but also companies will integrate it into their corporate strategies because they see value in it. And there is greater demand for transparency. Trust in the world has dropped, and the best way to overcome trust is by being transparent. So I will say some of the other things about greater protection because I think time's up. But I think regional initiatives like ACEBA and AREBA will also influence the ASEAN. So in conclusion, for the last slide, let me just say that ESG, the next slide, please. In conclusion, the ESG is evolving because there is regulatory pressure, changes, investor pressure, global commitments. So companies are now saying that if I use or prioritize ESG, I get reputation, market access, and long-term reliance. It's good for them. And embracing circular economy is vital, actually, for sustainable growth, and it's also a competitive advantage. And labor standards can foster fair and responsible, and there's huge impact for pushing for treating people, especially in Europe, and coming up with due diligence guidelines. This becomes a very important. The S in ESG is becoming more and more important. And finally, I think our initiatives will scale up and implement ESG implementation. With that note, I thank you and thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. So basically, we've seen in Thomas's presentation how ESG over the years have centered on both internal and external change making, integrity and resilience building among businesses and enterprises. And I think a key message that, if I may repeat, a key message that Thomas mentioned in his presentation, ESG is also challenging how businesses can be profitable by being sustainable. So for our next presentation, which will tie up the circular economy to ESG performance and impact, may we call on Dr. Renee Van Berkel, co-convener of ACEBA, senior expert of EU Switch Asia PSC, and also lecturer at Thammasat University in Thailand.
Thank you very much, Grace, and thank you, Thomas and Vivki, for setting the scene and really focusing on the ESG agenda, which is rapidly evolving and so on. And I would like to connect in the next 10 minutes or so this with the circular economy agenda. So I guess the circular economy is kind of understood quite broadly as changing from taking resources out of nature, making a product, using the product, and then throwing it away, which is a linear production and consumption model, to something which is taking still resources, making and using, but then recovering the end-of-life product and the end-of-life parts and repeat this circular model. So perpetually repeat. And we've seen some evolution of this. This has initially been shaped like a 3R agenda of reduce, reuse, recycle. Then we saw an agenda which is the R strategies, known as where we think, reduce, refurbish, remanufacture, and so on, have been added. So that's 9 or 10 R practices. And we see now ISO 59004, which came out last year, is basically saying 13 resource management actions to say not making new things, making things in a different way, making things that last, cycle resources around the economy and recover resources. But I guess what this says is that the circular economy does not equal a recycling economy, or I might say it more profoundly and say, or more provocatively, and say that circular recycling is basically the last resort in a circular economy, whereas many people, the first initiative is our circular economy, that's recycling. But we really want to try to even avoid recycling by designing in reuse, perpetual use and extended use and related practices. So I guess what we see is that there's different concepts and practices for circular economy around, and that's different schools of thought. And in principle, one could say that this enriches each other, but in practice, we see that they also compete a little bit. So there's a kind of Babylonian confusion around the concept, and we see that some people are talking more about the ecosystem metaphor. So in nature, nothing goes to waste. So you have to do that in the economy as well. Nothing goes to waste. We have agreed that the Rio conference in '92 with all governments on a precautionary principle. So if there's a concern about the environmental issues or hazards or risks, then we should avoid this. So that's the precautionary principle. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Then we have a stream which is focusing more on saying that we take materials which have limited value out of nature, we convert it into high value products, and then we throw them away. So how can we retain that value? And then we are having a stream of thoughts, which is more the International Resource Panel, saying that we should grow the economy without growing the consumption of natural resources. So we could detach the economy well-being from resource use and environmental impacts. So this we could then also say that basically circular economy, this is broadly in alliance with the ISO 59 standards, that we say it's a systems perspective on the inflow of resources, which we see at the bottom, resources coming into economy and society and being spewed out as waste. And these resources and waste have planetary impacts. We have already mentioned that climate change, loss of nature, accumulation of pollution, together the triple planetary crisis. And then the aim of the circular economy is really to bring this net inflows and these net outflows as close as possible to zero, to zeroing out and flourishing resource use and zeroing out waste disposal into the environment. So we can then talk about this as an aspirational goal or an ambitious goal, but for business, and this we have done with ACEBA and Switch Asia, to kind of come up with guiding principles for business action on the circular economy. And we came up with 5 kind of guiding principles, which can define the kind of the magnetic north for what circular economy is. So first one talks about what's the purpose ultimately. So that's net zero for climate, nature, and environment. So address the root cause of climate change, nature loss, and waste and pollution, which is basically unsustainable resource use. Then how do we do that? The means for doing that is through efficient circular and use of materials, so using materials more efficiently, longer, and circularly, and switching to renewable materials which can be cycled back into nature. So basically then that links to basically this is responsible business, as Thomas has elaborated it. ISO 26000 clearly said that business has to take some responsibility for the impacts on environment and society of materials and other resources that are required in the life cycle of its products. So the means for actually achieving this then is to redesign circular products and services, and that's ideation, co-creation, so new products, new services that are circular. And of course, this you could say is the circularity starts with an environmental lens as a starting point, but it's ultimately also aimed to generate net benefits. So first of all, we de-risk the economy and society from the unsustainable use of natural resources by minimizing climate impacts, minimizing impacts from pollution and waste, but also just on a more micro level profitability of businesses and competitive business at large. So we've done with Switch support. We have documented so far 79 business cases, mainly from Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, and we are working to develop more. They are all available on the ACEBA website. The link is here and can be posted in the chat box, but this is the example. So I would just like to maybe showcase 4, and we will discuss with 4 others. So the first one is Pak Sing Corporation in Vietnam, which is basically a coffee producer, and traditionally the coffee berries are going to waste, and actually also contributing to greenhouse gas emissions because it basically degenerates. So instead of throwing the coffee berry waste away, they create now cascara tea, which is a herbal tea and which is valuable. But to take this berry waste as an input for tea, you have to minimize the chemicals used in coffee growing and optimize the coffee harvesting. This is also good for the coffee farmers because they have an additional source of income, and they are also minimizing chemicals use, which is minimizing the exposure to chemicals for their families. Then the other example is Fair Farms from Cambodia, which is specialized in kampot pepper manufacturing or growing, and they have basically done soil rejuvenation with cover crop of peanut grass. Intercrop is vanilla. Substitute fertilizers, fish bones, cow dung, and peanut grass, and reduce the soil erosion and reduction of irrigation and the energy use, and have also reduced a lot of the fertilizer and chemicals used. And they have a co-product, vanilla, now coming out, and they do it on the organic and fair trade certification. So fair operating practices, fair practices with the farmers. They get a better crop and they get also more reward for that. My third example is from Bangkok, here around the corner from where we're sitting. Sivatel Bangkok is an eco or a boutique hotel, has a comprehensive approach for food waste minimization, including on-site farming of black soldier flies and the market garden, and he reduced food cost by 10%. They've established partnerships with local growers and enabled them to have a 6-fold increase of organic produce, so organic fruits and vegetables which they use, eliminated single-use plastics, which is about 225,000 items annually, 10% energy savings. And they are now a recognized leader in food safety, which is a social benefit and happy work environment. Then my last example is Pebble from Indonesia, which is a company that mechanically recycles fabric, so post-consumer garments and pre-consumption fabric waste. And they extract the fiber, do a color sorting, and then do spinning. And they co-create new fabrics with small weavers and designers in the village, which creates then new opportunities for marginalized weavers and designers to create sustainable fabrics. So why do business get involved? And Thomas mentioned it briefly. I think that's, first of all, there's the opportunity for cost savings. So materials, energy are expensive. So if you use them more efficiently, that results in cost reduction. There's new business opportunities with sustainable products and services, organic pepper I mentioned. And there's also, of course, business which I see that the changes on the horizon, the unsustainable patterns of plastics and fast fashion. So companies are deciding to be early on and get some experiences, and that links with the more management frameworks of risk management, value creation, and strategic advantage. But we would really emphasize the cost savings and the business opportunities. So this makes good business sense. That what appears to drive then the success, I think that from across these 80 or so business cases, we see that these companies have a sense of a magnetic north, a purpose. So they understand the bigger pictures and how they contribute. Therefore, they see some innovation with a material impact on the use of materials, energy, water, and natural resources. It's a generally knowledge-driven solutions, but it's not just knowledge as the last computer sciences, but it's formal, tacit, and traditional knowledge, skills, and culture. As we had the examples for regenerative agriculture is well known, but we have to just do this again, this cover crop farming and related ones. And then, of course, entrepreneurship to turn the business ideas and opportunities into successful business ventures. This is not to say there's no challenges in technology and finance, but without these assets of purpose, innovation, knowledge, and entrepreneurship, it will be difficult to get anywhere, even if technology and financing are available. I want to connect with the ESG that Thomas has spoken about. I think that it's very clear that circular economy advances sustainable use of materials and natural resources towards net zero for climate, for waste and pollution, and for regeneration of nature and biodiversity. So we start with an environmental lens as an environmental starting point, but then contribute to social because we minimize hazardous materials and conditions for improving safe and decent work conditions and keeping communities and consumers safe. So the safety and the rewarding practices, we recognize the value of culture, the value of traditional designs, bringing forward. On the governance side, I think that ensuring good governance and business continuity is ensured through a circular economy, through environment and other compliances, and proactive risk management of risk of climate and environmental change on the company. So being prepared, being compliant, and if you're compliant, you don't have to pay a bribe, so you don't deal with the bribery and related issues. Thomas already mentioned ACEBA was launched in July last year as an ASEAN-centric business-led initiative in support of the circular economy transition. with the endorsement of the ASEAN Secretariat, the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, the Coordinating Committee on MSMEs and EU delegation, and it's an initiative of ACEBA supported by Switch Asia. So basically, we are bringing together participants that pledge to lead by example in adoption of circular economy, to advocate for and adopt circular economy, and we provide them visibility and a voice to this participating companies like webinars like we're having today. And as ACEBA then documents and showcases good business practices, we facilitate learning and sharing among companies, and we promote operational tools and metrics that are appropriate to the ASEAN region. So I would close maybe with interest to join the ACEBA, join the alliance. If you're ready to commit and say, yes, I believe in circular economy and I can contribute, then join the alliance, please. If you have a good practices on business cases, we are always looking on Outlook for showcasing good examples of circular economy like the 4 I shared. Join us for the mailing list, or if you have any other suggestions, please contact us. Thank you very much. Over to you back again, Grace. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Renee. So we've seen how the circular economy as a concept and as a framework is offering a promising strategy for businesses to achieve environmental sustainability, as well as to spur business innovation and profitability. And as we've seen in the business cases documented by ACEBA, there is clear evidence showing a growing number of ASEAN businesses benefiting from the implementation of CA practices in the region. So we would like to show you just a short video that highlights again the CE practices from the business cases that we've documented so far. Mimi, can we play the video? Mimi, can we play the video?
Yeah.
Maybe we can go ahead, Renee.
Yes. Sorry, Grace, can you introduce the panel? Because if we can't wait too long, if it doesn't work, then we have just one of these technical issues today.
Okay, no worries. So since we're having technical difficulties, we'll just share a link to the video later on. But okay, let's move on to our first panel discussion. This will be on experience sharing among ASEAN businesses on their circular economy and ESG practices. So this will be moderated by Dr. Van Berkel. We have with us today as panelists Ms. Elodie Rada, co-founder of Sayok Springs in Thailand. We have Ms. Lom Cho Se, project manager of Ton Toton from Cambodia. Mr. Awen Delaval, founder of Lotus Farm by Samatoa, also from Cambodia. And Mr. Mark Pagaduan, founder of Restyle from the Philippines.
Yes, thank you very much to each of you four. I want to acknowledge we have also documented your business case on the ACEBA and the Switch Asia. But I guess it's very interesting to just hear from you. And I would like to start with a first question to all four of you to maybe introduce your company briefly, or what circular economy practices you have adopted and how that basically works for your business. So how circular economy is good for your business. So Elodie, since you're in Bangkok and I'm in Bangkok, can I ask you to start for this? So what has Sayok Springs done?
Yeah, hello. So I started my company with my husband 3 years ago, and we don't see the background, but we produce mineral water and in reusable glass bottles, so closed loop. Because when we started the business, we were thinking about how can we do it the most sustainable way. And the water sold in Thailand either is in plastic bottle, in metallic cans, or imported in glass bottles. So we decided to do it in glass bottles to make a difference.
Yes. And how do you see that works on for your business? Is that working out? You're coming with a new concept?
Yeah, at first I think it was a bit difficult because people, they will not understand why we do that. They will think like, oh, so we need to keep the bottles, and then logistic wise also people will not understand why we will like keep the bottle and refill them and clean them instead of throwing them away. But I feel like, yeah, after a few months, people started to understand what we are doing that, and we are still quite niche, but I think it's like a major selling point for us to be like circular and not way more sustainable than other companies.
Thank you, Elodie, because then you basically address the plastics issue, but also the transport, the shipping of the mineral water from Europe, which has a huge impact on greenhouse gas emissions, of course.
Exactly.
Yes. So maybe Lung Chung, can I ask you to introduce basically Ton to Ton from Cambodia?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lam Chu, project manager. I'm a project manager at Ton to Ton, based in Cambodia. Actually, we're based in Sihanouk Ville, one of the coastal province of Cambodia. And so thank you for having me, and I'm honored to be part of this discussion today. So basically, Ton to Ton, we are a local-based, community-based project working on collecting and managing mismanaged plastic from the ocean-bound environment. So our process or our project involves the plastic collection, plastic cleanup from the environment, from the shorelines in Cambodia, and also involve the sorting process and also reprocessing plastic waste to other products, to reusable products. And we also, so in the program or in the project that we are doing involves the local community and also informal waste pickers to collect, to clean the plastic, and we transform this plastic into value products. So thank you, and that's it from me now.
Can I do a follow-up question? Because I think you're also doing then the certified plastics, the ocean-bound credits. Maybe you can elaborate, because many people would not be aware of that.
Yeah, sure. So basically, our project, what we collect every type of the plastic from environment, and our main focus is on collecting or cleaning up the non-recyclable plastic or hard to recycle plastic from environment, because that's one of the huge problem that we see in plastic pollution in the environment, that we see huge part of it, or majority of the plastic is non-recyclable, and that's what we need to solve. That's what we need to focus on. So the non-recyclable plastic, basically we collect everything and separate based on type of the plastic. Non-recyclable plastic does need the additional efforts to be collected, to be removed from the environment, because that's was left because of the value of the plastic does not exist, and the market of this plastic does not exist. So for us, we collect everything, we sort, and the project, the process of the collection, sorting this plastic is covered, or what we can say, by the plastic credits that we, so basically plastic credit is just the funding mechanism, just the platform that our project can use to gather the support from other organizations and corporates or company that they want, or also groups or individuals, they want to support the collection, prevention of the plastic leakage at the environment. So every step of from the collection, the treatment or processing of this non-recyclable plastic is verified and certified by a standard we call which is ocean bound. For us right now, we are certified under the OBP program, or OBP standard, which is ocean bound plastic program. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll come back on some of the ESG impacts in a second. So these were two examples dealing with plastics pollution and the substitution for the alternative. So I would like to go to maybe two examples which are more dealing with the fashion and textiles materials. So Ayan, just to stay in Cambodia first. So can you explain what Lotus Farms by Samatoa is doing in this regard, and how you progressing on the circular economy?
Yes, sure, and thank you for the invitation. My name is Awen Dolaval. I am the founder of Lotus Farm in Siem Reap. So actually, the circular economy is at the heart of our project. I came in Cambodia 20 years ago. As you said before, for circular economy, I believe we need a purpose. And I came in Cambodia with two commitments. One, to provide decent work for the women in the countryside. And the second commitment is for the planet. And concretely is to provide, we want to provide a model of perfect circular economy. And we focus on agriculture waste in order to create textile for the luxury fashion.
So you say agriculture waste, so which waste are you focusing on?
Actually, the main waste that we focus on is the waste from the lotus flower. Because the lotus flower is used in thousands of years in order to, it's a main offering for the monk and the Buddhism ceremony here in Southeast Asia. And every year there is millions of tons of lotus stem that is waste. And so our first commitment was to reuse this waste, to give, not just to recycle, but to give the best value of each waste of this miracle plant in order to create innovative and sustainable products. So the first one was Lotus Textile that we have innovated more than 10 years ago. We have discovered the possibility to create a unique textile made from the lotus fiber, from the lotus stem that was a waste initially. And we have created the most expensive textile now that is in the luxury industry. That was our main innovations, and actually we are continue this game, because after we extract the fiber from the lotus stem, today we transform around 300 tons of lotus stem waste into textile. And the story could end here. However, after we extract the fiber from the lotus stem, we still have a huge quantity of piece of lotus stem that is almost 300 tons every year. So from this, so we have worked for now more than 10 years in order to give the best value of this new waste. And mainly, first, we have created a very beautiful paper, grinding this waste with water and oil paper from the nearby school. We have created a very nice paper that closes the loop, no more plastic. We use this paper to create our labeling and packaging. But finally, we discover with paper that we won't be able to create many jobs. Paper is cheap and very competitive. So we had to dig a bit more, and it's thanks to COVID. We had a lot of time, so we finalized the right recipe. And now we mix this new lotus stem waste with glycerin, which is vegetal oil, and starch, we meet for 2 hours, we dry under the sun for 24 hours in order to create what we call a vegan leather. And here probably the first plastic-free vegan leather in the world. I insist plastic-free, because most of the vegan leather you see in the market today are mixed with plastic, with petrol or any chemical. This new vegan leather is 100% natural and biodegradable, and a pure product of the circular economy.
Thank you, Ewan. It's very interesting. But I think you're exactly an example of saying that can we switch to using waste materials, organic materials, which is abundantly available, and create also value for the community and the community weavers in which you have the women in the different villages around Siem Reap. So that's very good. So then I would like to bring Mark in, from Restyle in the Philippines. So tell us about your circular economy journey, your circular economy business.
Thank you. I am Mark from Philippines. Again, thank you for inviting me here. Working with Restyle is a recent company. It's a post-pandemic company that we started working with the existing textile. As you know, Philippines is one of the, when it comes to hospitality business, Philippines is grand and it really serves, we try to be number one. And most of the hotel industry in our country, 2 to 3 years they change their bedsheet linen, and that's where Restyle is working in the existing post-consumer waste, the textile. And also one of the reason why Restyle was established also because there are many imported clothes diverted to the Philippines, came from UK and America, the ukay-ukay as we know here in the country. These are oversized pants, and it's a winter jacket, and you know how hot in the country. These are the things that that has no use in our place. So that's why I see the opportunity in working on that on that clothes. The winter jacket right now, what we're doing is that we are creating a washable pad that really caters a lot of students, elementary students from rural areas that has quite hard in in getting an affordable sanitary napkin as early as grade 4 and grade 5 in our country. It is one of the major problem why the education really affects them. So that's why we tried to look for that solution, and good thing that we're really creating an impact. So from the humble beginning of Restyle, from selling online and pre-lab fashion, we started to build it as Restyle. That's why we coined the name Recycle Your Style. Up to date, Restyle is a circular economy is enterprise, as I called it, and we are really a community-driven textile waste company. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've heard 4 examples, quite different, each of them having some links to ESG impact. So I would like to ask specifically on the ESG impacts and the involvement of community stakeholders. So maybe I can just reverse the order and stay with you, Mark. So you're not off the hook, but so can I ask you how you see your circularity innovation is contributing to your ESG principles, and how you work with your different stakeholders?
I guess Restyle is really working aligned with the ESG targets. When it comes to environment, we diverted textile waste from landfill, the existing one, from collection to repurposing. Actually, this last year alone, we on the record we diverted around 13,000 kilos out of one company only. And of course, our sortation process, we create a livelihood program because the 13,000 kilos must be sorted from their standard, from the usable ratio. Say the 80% goes to the saleable item, the 50% goes to the donation drive. We partner with different organizations. As you know, also the Philippines is also prone to typhoon. That's why Restyle also helps our country in giving assorted donated clothes. That's why it is easy for us to get clothes from they are getting easy the clothes from our company. We also minimize the environmental impact, because we really push the reuse and use of clothing. Currently, Rizal is working with Philippine Textile Research Institute and Department of Science and Technology, working with natural dyeing, because as you know, the hotel linen are all white, and we want to make a sustainable statement, turning into brown using coffee bean, turning it to yellow using the turmeric, and those are the natural dyeing that we're doing. We're currently working and collaborating, also extracting natural fiber from banana and pineapple. When it comes to social, I think we generate livelihood opportunities. On the record, right now we cater 30 to 40 local sewer seamstress within the community. Through the donation drive, we also have this this disaster relief effort, especially in typhoon. When it comes to governance, I think our transparency, accountability, and ensuring traceability to our corporate partners, we are doing a sustainability data report with the help of our internal and external auditor also, and a fair distribution of our resources. We continuously collaborating with government agencies, especially how to properly record and report the ESG effort on the textile waste. So I think, Rene, that's it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry for keeping you brief, but I think it's very clear your community engagement, you create jobs for their livelihoods, and you clearly destiny part of your recycled, recovered clothing for emergency relief for the typhoons and related issues. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I go back to Ewan for Lotus Farm. So can you elaborate a bit on how you work with the communities and then work on the ESG agenda?
Yes, so actually we try not to take care about their traditional job, which is growing very well the lotus plant and other plant we work with. So our main objective is to provide them with more revenue. So actually, very concretely, before they can make $700 per hectare for per hectare of lotus. And today they are able to multiply by 10 the revenue they can get from 1 hectare of lotus. So around $7,000 for a field. So instead of to provide job for 1 or 2%, it can provide job for 10%.
Yes. Yes, so you're particularly focusing on the job creation, the livelihood creation, the added value, which you say the byproduct now is much more valuable than the original lotus flower.
Right, and actually more we discover this unique plant, more we create new product, and more the products are valuable. Concretely, the future of the farm now is not anymore the lotus textile, which is well implanted in the luxury market, but it is the vegan leather, which just will start to develop this year in the first brand. And after that, we also try to use all the other part of the lotus flower. I can give you one example. It's was the part that we use for Ayurvedic medicine, the pistil, the stamen, the yellow part that we have at the heart of the lotus flower. That exceptional value for the medicine, but also for the skin. So we have developed an extract that now we have developed, and we create our own cosmetic, our own cream, soap, and also perfume in order to develop a full range of cosmetic.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so very, very diverse and very interesting. So we should come and see all these projects. It's very interesting to hear that. So sorry to keep you brief. Go back to Lung Chu on ton to ton sort of social governance related issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So for us, ton to ton, our solution or our project, we're not only focusing on just collecting the plastic and cleaning it from environment, but what we want or our project that we aim to do is to involve the local people, the local communities to be part of the solution. Of course, ton to ton, we cannot solve this problem. It's a huge problem, so we cannot solve this alone. We need all joint forces from all the stakeholders. So for us, involving or working closely with the local communities and also informal waste collectors to collect, to clean the plastic and keep their village or their community clean is our one goal to do. And at the same time, while they are doing the collection or engaging with our project, at the same time they understand or their value of their engagement in this problem. And one another thing is that the project we create open the opportunity for the locals, especially focusing on at the poor communities or disadvantaged communities, to have the opportunity to involve to clean the environment, at the same time earn additional income to their family. So while we focus on cleaning the plastic from environment, preventing plastic leakage to environment, at the same time value the work of the local community and also promote their contribution, their undeniable impact to the community to keep the environment clean. So all these so-called projects or activities that we do, we want to ensure that nothing and no one is left behind.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. So sorry to keep moving on, but I want to come back to Elodie. So for Sayok Spring, so how are you working with the community, and how have they been involved in the success of your company?
Thank you. Yeah, from the beginning, one of our principles was to give back to the community. So first, we wanted to give money back to the community, but we found out it's not a good idea sometimes. So we give back part of our revenue every month, but to the community, like to the school, to support the school, to support the temple, and to support also sufficient economy, because in the village they start also producing different things that they sell and it make more revenue. So we help them to also have their own businesses. And also now we start partnering with other organization, like we partner also with university, with Mahida also we will have a production and have young people who will be like really trained in the field they are learning. So production will work for us on that topic, and also start like more large scale community action, like we will start in Phuket to do like beach cleanup. We start also partnering with American Club to give scholarship to young women who want to study further and who have the means. So yeah, we started really small, and now we're trying to grow in our impact.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I think it's very clear that you're working with the community to also do the water management, the stewardship of the sources, and give a reward back to the community, which is important for high quality water. So it's very interesting. I think in the interest of time, I have to cut, unfortunately. But thank you very much, Elodie, Lamcho, Mark, and Eamon, for your sharing of your experience. I think it clearly shows that circular economy is good as a business practice, as a business opportunity, but it's clearly also providing opportunities to do well for the community, to do well for the environment. So over back to you, Grace, for introducing the next panel. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Renee, and our panelists, Elodie, Lomcha, Owen, and also Mark. We move on to our second panel, where we will hear from a panel of experts on how we can enhance the contribution of circular economy towards better ESG performance and impact. So we're joined this afternoon by Ms. Clara Kwan, the Chief Sustainability Officer of the Singapore Manufacturers Federation. We also have with us Ms. Victoria Tan, Executive Director and Group Head, the Enterprise Risk Management and Sustainability Unit of the Ayala Corporation, and also the Chairperson of Global Compact Network Philippines. We also have with us Attorney Gregorio Rafael Bueta, Environment, Climate, and Sustainability lawyer and faculty member of the Ateneo de Manila School of Law. Thomas, we move on to your panel.
Thank you very much, Grace, for this introduction. And thank you to Clara, Vicky, and Grip for joining this panel. Thank you very much. I think you all have got some unique contributions to make. To save time, just let me just plunge into hearing from you without much of introductions. Clara, I want to actually start with you because you're quite unique. You are in a trade association, the Singapore Manufacturers Association, and you're the Chief Sustainability Officer there. It's not very usual to hear trade associations having heads of sustainability as a thing. So I would like to ask, why did it happen, and what are you expected to do, and what is the Manufacturers Association members expecting from the sustainability angle?
Thank you for that, Thomas. So, well, actually for us, appointing a Chief Sustainability Officer at the Singapore Manufacturing Federation is a strategic and symbolic decision on our part. We are actually relatively new, about 2 years old, but it actually reflects our recognition that sustainability is no longer a peripheral issue. It is now a core business driver that impacts competitiveness, investment, supply chain, talent attraction, long-term resilience. And all this is actually, we have actually done surveys on our members, and a lot of it shows in that way. So for us here, right, it's not just appointing a CSO for our internal leadership, but actually we launched a Chief Sustainability Officer as a service, CSOAAS. It's a flagship initiative to allow easy access to sustainability leadership for our members and also for the public. Because we observe a very clear gap. Many SMEs, small, medium enterprises, or even mid-sized enterprises, they want to embrace ESG, but somehow lack the internal expertise, resources, or confidence, so worrying whether this additional headcount makes sense or not. So hiring a full-time CSO isn't feasible for many of these companies but yet at the same time, they face increasing pressure from customers, regulators, financiers to report something, act on sustainability. So as we exist is actually a response to this reality. So it allows companies to tap into expert CSO guidance, execution support on a very flexible and scalable basis. So our model gives them access to tailored sustainability roadmaps just for them, ESG reporting templates, aligned with global frameworks, capacity building, and even helping with certifications and investor presentations without worrying about the overhead of a full-time hiring until they are ready to do so. So we want to show that even though you are expected to start something, doing bite-size, just having a start and having someone to handhold you throughout the journey isn't so frightening. So really, I think here we're saying that sustainability is really not a buzzword anymore. It's a business imperative, and we're here to help companies to make that transition regardless of size, leaving no one behind and no company behind. Yeah.
Thank you very much. You put it in very nice context, reinforcing the message that Renee and I and the others are putting in the earlier panel. Let me just ask Vicky, who works for Ayala Corporation, which has got a good reputation for ESG, and she's also now chair of Global Compact, which drives sustainability, ESG, and environment stewardship. What message could you give us from your experience on the drivers to embrace ESG in the Philippines? Vicky?
Thank you. Thank you for that, Thomas. Thank you for having me, and congratulations to ACEBA for creating the environment or the organization that will push for the circularity as a business agenda. I guess in a nutshell, what I can say is that the businesses cannot thrive in an environment that is degraded, and that in an environment that there is social inequity. We are here together. Businesses will only thrive if the environment is well taken care of, and also if we have also good practices for the people. So sustainability, as mentioned by Clara, and I think as you mentioned even by yourself and Rene a while ago, it's no longer a nice to have thing. It is actually a part of your strategy, the strategy for you to be here in the long term. It is also one way of future proofing the organization because you are looking at risk. Risk that will actually impact your business or your bottom line. And at the same time, the flip side of risk are opportunities. So what can you get out of these trends right now that is happening, that is shifting? The shift is actually driven by by the markets that we are serving, by the consumers, even by the regulators. Now, on the regulatory side, I think you mentioned also that for in the Philippines, we already have a law for the extended producer's liability. We started off with plastic, and I know that right now the implementing rules and guidelines for paper, cartons are also being drafted, and then we will go on until we all have solutions for all of the ways that we are creating in our operations up to the e-waste part. So we have that law. And then another one that's driving ESG as part of sustainability is our SEC. They are asking the publicly listed companies, about 230 of them, to disclose material informations on ESG, following the standards that we know today, GRI, SASB, TCFD, but we are slowly shifting to the IFRS S1 and S2 in the future. There are other bills that are now in the Senate and in the House related to circularity and others related to decarbonization. So definitely the regulatory environment will shift and will impact the way we are doing business in the Philippines. I guess that's my answer to your question, Thomas. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Ethan, concise. Could I just ask the group? I mean, you are not just a lawyer, but you're also giving advice to governments and in not just in the Philippines, but you also, I see that it's also in the region. So from a policy perspective, how are governments aiding ESG compliance, ESG innovation in the private sector? Are there noteworthy public policy examples in ASEAN?
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you, Thomas, for that question. I know well, of course, it's a pleasure to be joining this panel this afternoon. From your presentation, also with what Ms. Vicky shared earlier, she was already citing notable examples. But I think the one notable development here in ASEAN is that we are seeing, although as you mentioned, there is a bit of a disconnect or a disjointed regulatory framework. We are seeing that ESG and circular economy switch to a low carbon economy, greater climate action is slowly becoming part of the narrative in the regular language of different policies. In ASEAN, you did cite regional developments like the taxonomy for sustainable finance, the standards for businesses, for example. Even in ASEAN's own vision document, there are clear calls for this linkage between sustainable development and sustainable environment. So we want ASEAN to be a prosperous community. We want ASEAN to lift up those who are impoverished. We want it to be a center for economic development, but at the same time, doing all that not risking our environment, doing all that without us damaging the already fragile and very rich biodiversity that our region has. And I think this is where governments can do three things. First, I think it's important for for governments to establish and recognize fundamental rights. And when we talk about ESG, I think we can talk about each one pointing to these fundamental rights which governments, which policymakers can point to. So first, we know when you talk about E, we're talking about the right to a clean and healthy environment. Incidentally, the UN Human Rights Council I think 2 days ago, recognized they've recognized the right to a clean, healthy environment as a fundamental right. But in a recent document, they recognize the threat of pollution, particularly plastic pollution, to this fundamental right. And that's why governments, those who protect and promote human rights, must address plastic pollution. When you talk about going beyond human rights, I think you also have to look at social justice aspects and also the economic and social and cultural rights of people. And when you talk about the G, or the governance aspects, this is where governments can come in and ensure fair play. It can ensure a level playing field. It can ensure ease of doing business, and all this, making sure that businesses and also those whose rights are affected have specific redress for grievances. So going, it's not only ensuring that companies are managed well, companies have the right policies, but also when that governance aspect should spill over to the wider society. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, group. Not just wanting to connect the circular economy thinking and the future with the circular economy among ASEAN businesses. I will ask every one of you, because of time, how can businesses embed circular economy, ESG better in the organization compared to what we do? And how could our organizations, the ACEBA, the Circular Economy Business Alliance, and the AREBA, how can we contribute to these efforts to embed and do better in ESG and circular economy? I will start off with Grip. Why don't you start, gentlemen first, for a change?
Thank you, Thomas. I think businesses can, of course, in this webinar, in our discussions, we've recognized the crucial or the important role of businesses in not just with pushing for ESG, with incorporating ESG, with inculturating ESG within their businesses, but more importantly, moving beyond just being a checklist or a something good to be doing, or more than just a buzzword. And I think this is where businesses can really work with governments and policymakers. First, by supporting the development of policy, by engaging government, by working with our policymakers. But at the same time, also, I think this is where the compliance aspect, or the drive of businesses to make sure that they comply with whatever government mandates. I would cite as an example our extended producer's responsibility law here in the Philippines, as what Vicky mentioned. It's been implemented for the past 2 years, but unfortunately, according to our Environment Ministry, according to the Environment Department, only about 20% or so, or a little over 20% of obliged enterprises have complied as of now. So there is still even though it's already mandatory, even though the rules are slowly coming into place, even though the whole EPR ecosystem is being built, there are still businesses who, well, perhaps a good number do not know how to comply, or do not know if they need to comply, but there are those who perhaps deliberately do not comply. And I think this is where the responsibility aspect of businesses do come in. One of the pillars of doing responsible business is recognizing that the businesses are also duty bearers when it comes to the protection and promotion of rights. And we can say that circular economy is related to the right to a clean and healthy environment, and therefore we can legally argue that protecting and promoting the right to a clean and healthy environment is part of business responsibility in relation to the promotion of human rights. So I think that's one specific way how businesses can help support CE through the adoption of ESG policies. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thanks. Could I ask the same question to Vicky? Vicky, what is your take?
Hi.
Yes.
I guess how do we clearly embed ESG or CE in our business operations? I think the first thing that we did actually is to have it as part of the board's agenda. So there is a continuous discussion related to ESG or even the SDGs as we speak right now. So it's coming from the tone from the top, And then recently, it's now part of our KRA. So how do we really ensure that ESG is part of the things that we are doing in the operations? We are currently developing the ESG investing criteria so that, because as Ayala Corporation is a parent company, our real role is to do investments, divestment, etc. And then very clearly right now, we are putting ESG in our investment criteria. At the operating level, we are creating the awareness, we are educating ourselves related to ESG, the risk and opportunities, because it has to make a business sense. Otherwise, it will just be a flop or something that will not fly in the long run. When everyone is on the same page, then there is a better commitment, and that it will all be related to the solutions that we can implement not only now but in the future, because we have to agree that the solutions to these issues will be for the long term. And then I guess you had the second question, which is related: how can ACEBA or ARIBA will help us in our sustainability journey, in particular for circularity? As a big conglomerate in the Philippines, we have all types of ways. We are generating all types of ways, and we realize that there will be solutions available, but there is no common solutions for all. And how do we now set our target in terms of circularity? First of all, we need help in putting together what is the right terminology that we can use as a corporation or as a conglomerate, so that we can develop that relevant targets that we will be able to achieve also in the future. Similar to our target to achieve net zero greenhouse gas by 2050, that's a target that is considered a gold standards in terms of decarbonization. So we want to educate ourselves, we want to learn more in relation to circularity. We are doing bits and pieces, but today I think there should be a better push for us to come up with an umbrella target and commitment in relation to circularity. What we also realize based on some studies is that circularity will help us achieve decarbonization by a decade. That's why there is that um, growing commitment to make sure that circularity will be part of our decarbonization uh, interventions in the future. That's all,
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatih. Could I just also ask Clara, could you just give your views on the same topic?
Yeah, sure. So I think for me, circularity actually directly enhances ESG outcomes. So, sorry. Yeah, so for me, I think Victoria said a few of these things already. Circularity reduces waste, conserves resources, lowers carbon footprint, advancing the environmental metrics under E. Socially, it fosters new job creation, skills development, equitable access to green innovations as we think of these new ideas on how to incorporate this in our designs. In terms of governance, the G, circular models demand transparency and traceability in resource flows, which driving better oversight and accountability. So just one simple thing on circularity does address each of the different points in E, S, and G. In ASEAN, where resource efficiency and resilience are so important, circularity offers an inclusive and a very practical pathway to sustainable growth, especially for SMEs, by reducing the dependency on virgin materials and global supply chain vulnerabilities. I mean, this is in short how I feel circularity can make a difference in sustainability. I think in terms of your second question, how ACEBA and ARIBA can contribute, is that I think they play very powerful roles as regional platforms in terms of collaboration, alignment, and influence. So from regional standards and certifications, it can definitely help to reduce the fragmentation between the different countries and promote mutual recognition. It can also facilitate the knowledge exchange and benchmarking across ASEAN. or you can even co-develop regional circular economy strategies that can be shared. What different countries are doing, some companies are more advanced than the others. This will be a great sharing system. I really appreciate the different case studies that were explained just now, and I think quite a few of us learned quite a bit of what others are doing in the region. So by building these ecosystems of innovation, we can link different companies together, manufacturers to researchers to startups to policymakers, to make a more holistic approach on how to make the world a better place. So I like that it can advocate in many different levels to ensure that ASEAN's voice is actually reflected, and in the global frameworks. Yeah, so this is what I think in my personal opinion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Clara. Thank you very much, Vicky and Grip. I think due to the shortage of time, I will have to round up. I think hearing all the three of you, we very clear, all of you agree that this sustainable ESG is an imperative. It is here to stay. It only grows, regardless of what Donald J. Trump says and others says. It is there. I think the businesses themselves know its advantages and they pick up. So imperative is good for business, but the issue is that a lot of businesses want to do it, but they may not know how to do it, and that's where the Singapore Manufacturers Association, the UN Global Compact, and consultants and even ACEBA, we come into the picture in trying to raise awareness. And provide some of the knowledge. We also said that in order to do this, you need the whole organization approach, the tone from the top and trying to get everybody in the organization to know what are the issues and what they can contribute as a whole. We also mentioned, especially on the role of governments. So in essence, what you say is governments can influence and governments are very influential. They need to make good rules and enforce those rules, because rules alone doesn't matter. It's enforcement and enabling businesses to follow the rules that matter. Therefore, in conclusion, I think ESG is a question of us to make sure the companies do well, they do good, they do more good, and we all need to work together to do together. And that's collective action. And ARIBA and ACEBA, we are regional platforms, and we hope we can contribute to this alignment and the facilitation, and hoped that after this we can work with not just the panelists and all the audience, and hope we can bring this to a higher level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas, Clara, Vicky, and Grip for an insightful panel. We have come to the end of our webinar. May we call on Dr. Zenaida Fediva, Team Leader of EU Switch Asia PSC, to wrap up and close our activity for this afternoon.
Thank you, colleagues. Word of thanks already were offered, Thomas, very ably. Thank you once again to all our speakers, panelists, participants for joining us today. It was a very large and diverse team with us online, and it was really a thought-provoking exchange. And today's webinar really reaffirmed something fundamental, that the circular economy is not just a waste management strategy, it is a comprehensive approach of how we see resources, how we use them, how we reuse it, how we manage materials, how we minimize waste, and importantly, how do we confront the climate change. So the link between material and climate has been particularly articulated by colleagues in the last, in the second panel. Circularity makes the material-climate connection visible and actionable, and it is really about redesigning system to reduce emissions at their source, to use fewer virgin resources, to build resilience into the supply chain, or supply chains, so that the bottom line eventually is not only not suffering, but really getting reinforced. But we also know that circularity on its own is not automatically sustainable or narrowly defined circularity. Without strong environmental, social, and governance principles, circular economy efforts might fall short in delivering fairness, inclusivity, and also, of course, real accountability. So circularity is really the tool, or as Renee, you mentioned it, and you use the word, help me here. So you used catalyst. Yes,
Yes.
the word circularity is the catalyst, and ESG is really the compass, we could say, if we really are being poetic or creative. So, and this is, of course, where the double materiality comes in, reminding us that business face both external risks and internal responsibilities, and that today's stakeholders, from investors to regulators to communities, expect actions that reflect both. So it's not simply ticking the boxes, as Grip you mentioned to us all, but it's really about actions. So under ACEBA leadership, and this is webinar is really which are organized by ACEBA Switch Asia, is supporting ACEBA in its step, but under your leadership, we've seen a strong foundation which is being laid already in spite of the relative youth of this initiative, where environmental and economic priorities are being effectively combined with broader social and inclusive development principles. And it is not done as an afterthought, but as a core business value. And these principles were co-developed with businesses in 5 Southeast Asian countries last year. So it's really not the brainchild of the co-conveners only. They worked really hard with all of you to come up with the principle showing that this platform, ACEBA, is a platform which is rooted in the region, shaped by its challenges, and really led by its businesses. So, well, Vicky, you said it, that it is really by business and for business. And importantly, we must recognize that businesses today are not just expected to be good employers. They're also expected to achieve contribution to the society. So government and governance system are increasingly looking for the private sector to help change and shape not only policies, but real life practices, which go beyond declarations and demonstrations and really create, as Clara, you mentioned, the whole ecosystem of innovation. And Vicky, you called it a platform for innovation. And also Rivki has been referring to ACEBA in this action as really the platform for ASEAN in the area of circular economy. So throughout today's discussion, we also heard clear reminders that terminology and traceability are critical. We don't share a common language, yes. Or if we can't track or verify progress, circularity, and ESG will remain abstract concepts. So again, ACEBA has been really working not necessarily at the definitions, but at the principle level, which makes this more practical and handleable. So those principles must be clear, and metrics must be credible, and systems must enable accountability, but at the same time flexibility. So, and as we wrap up, I'm confident that ACEBA and its and the ACEBA's platform have taken away many valuable pointers where to focus next, from accelerating collaboration or developing platforms stronger to strengthening data, tools, capacity building. So let me close with heartfelt thanks for, of course, ACEBA and its co-conveners. Of course, thanks to the ASEAN Business Advisory Council for very bold leadership in this area, to all businesses and business associations across Southeast Asia, including those which showed their practices to us today, and really to demonstrate that circular economy is not just an environmental goal, it's smart, future-proof business strategy. So let's continue to stay connected, to collaborate across the sector, and really lead together. Thank you very much. Stay engaged, stay commitment, and above, stay circular. Thank you for today. Over to you, Grace.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Zenaida. Again, thank you to everyone, to all our attendees. With that, we close this webinar. To learn more about ACEBA, you can visit our website, www.aceba.co. And again, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar as well as the presentations for everyone's reference. So good afternoon, everyone. And again, we hope you learned a lot from this webinar, and we look forward to having you again in the future webinars that ACEBA will be hosting. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Good
Thank
afternoon.
you. Bye.
Everyone, bye-bye.